Writing fiction is the act of weaving a series of lies to arrive at a greater truth. Khaled Hosseini. Bending Not Breaking, the Dragon Prince Edition. Episode 7, The Dagger and the Wolf. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Bending Not Breaking, the Dragon Prince Edition. We are glad you are here. If you're here for just the Dragon Prince, thank you for listening, and let me tell you that we have 3 seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender with special guests, including authors, voice actors, mental health professionals, and more. And if you like these episodes on the Dragon Prince, hopefully you will enjoy the Avatar episodes as well. In addition to that, I also hope that you'll enjoy The Legend of Korra, which, if you are listening live, it's going to start next week. And so that's pretty neat. Legend of Korra starts next week, and if you're keeping track, that means that you will realize that we have 2 episodes left of the Dragon Prince's Season 1 left as well. And so how are we going to do that? What we're going to do is we're going to be posting the last 2 episodes on our Patreon feed as bonus content for our patrons. And for anyone who wants to get access to those episodes, please consider supporting us as we try to make our way in this process. It's not the easiest, and yet it is really fulfilling. And so we want to continue doing it, but we also want to have your support, because that makes it a lot easier. The episodes will be put up in the next month, so you can find our Patreon at BNB_pod. Conveniently also our social media handles, and we have some really exciting things happening. We do live episodes with patrons. We have a small community of patrons on a Facebook page where we interact, we talk about the episodes, choose between lenses, and more. Also, we release bonus content for patrons, fairly regularly. So there's more benefits than just the Dragon Prince on our Patreon. I hope you'll join us and support us, and we just appreciate you. For our patrons who are already supporting us, you are the best. You are so great. Thank you so much for continuing to help us out and make sure that we're doing a good job. Okay, now that we have some of our announcements out of the way, we'll move along to the joy of this episode. Today, our lens is deception, and that's the act of causing someone to accept as true or valid what is actually false. So, let me set the stage. I love board games. I think board games are a form of community building that invite us away from our phones and technology, and they foster relationship building in a way that many of us have lost over time. And some of my favorite board games include Dominion, Hanabi, Wingspan, and a lot more actually, but I digress. One thing that is problematic though is the limited number of players with most games. Like most board games have a 4-person limit, and that's annoying. So what do we do with 10 people, for instance? And that changes the game, so to speak, because now we can't play the favorites, and so that brings in a whole new list of favorites that can accommodate more players, and some of those include Codenames, Bonanza that can fit 7, The Resistance, Avalon, etc. And so now, why am I ranting about board games to discuss deception? Well, let me tell you about the time I vowed never to trust Sunshine, my co-host, ever again in board games, because he's the worst. So we were playing The Resistance, which is a game of spies and lies, and we were playing with 10 people, and that means that on a 10-person game there are 4 spies that are unknown to the group but known to each other, and then there are 6 people on the team of goodness and wholeness that are trying to not be, not taken down by the spies. And so the group goes on missions, and those missions fail when a spy decides to tank the mission. But if they tank it, they have to make sure that they aren't caught, too. Anyway, there's a whole beautiful game that exists that is all around that. Anyway, Sunshine looks me dead in the eye and swears he will clean the house twice. And we live in the same house at this point. And he claims that he's going to clean it twice. And listen, I value this immensely because Sunshine improved over the 7 years that we lived together, but let me be real, like, cleaning was not his strength. And so I valued this immensely, and I know that he was, like, this was big for him to commit to this. And so here's the deal. I trust him, and we get to the end of the game, and he's on my team. We play again, though, right? And Sunshine looks me dead in the eye and says he's on my team again and swears again. This time I didn't notice this, but it was without the caveat. And for me, I thought that I heard it again. I thought maybe I was just living in the joy of winning the prior game. And anyway, the entire game, I defended him and I supported him. And at the end of the game, I saw him turn over his card to reveal that he was a spy, and I lost it. He laughed, he chortled, he did all the things that taught me in a smug little way. And then I learned my lesson to never trust him ever again because of his ruthless deception and his frankly, his betrayal of our friendship. And so, I'm not going to say I hated him for a little while, but I did. It was rough. I still don't trust him to this day in games. So watch out, y'all. If you ever play a game with Sunshine, know that he's ruthless and cutthroat. That's all I'm saying. So as I watch today's episode of The Dragon Prince, what I want to do is kind of just identify what deception does to relationships. And that's why I tell you that story. So let's dive in. But first, before we really dive in, we got to do a recap. So I'm going to do a quick, as fast as I can, and then we're going to move on into the fun part. So a recap. First, we got a recap. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the trio ventures to the mountain village because they need help to save the egg because it's dying, and then Snowman or Snow Elf, and then Rayla becomes a human Rayla with perfect disguise to deceive the village, and then upon entering the village, they see a sun-forged blade, whoop, some butt in a challenge, and then the boys go to a normal vet, and then, hide the egg, but then they show the egg, and then he tells them not only possible, really the only possible way might be the top of the cursed caldera, and then like, oh my god, no, and then they leave and they meet Ellis and Ava, and then learn about magic at the top of that healed Wolfie, and then Rayla thinks the blade will be able to cut through the wrist binding, so she finds the dude, steals the knife, it doesn't work, then she thinks he's going to kill him, and then she's like, no, and she leaves the knife in the whole village, chases them out of town, towards the caldera. Meanwhile, Claudia and Soren are scavenging for ingredients for a tracking post. Tracking spell. Y'all, this is hard. It's hard to get everything in. I'm just saying, I appreciate it more and more to get everything in a fast way. But, hopefully you just watch the episode and you're all up to date and you don't need to rely on my recap. But that's beside the point. Okay, now it is time for the top 5 moments of deception that I pulled out. Again, the top 5 is not like in order from greatest to least or most important to least important or any sort of ranking. It's just the order that I happen to put them in. So 5 moments of deception that I want to lift up and discuss with you all. The first one happens pretty early on. So Ezran tries to cover up being sick, and he's just been drenched in cold, and he tries to cover up being sick, and Callum sees right through it. And I think about this because it makes me sad. Deception, Ezran's doing this because I imagine he's doing this as a means of protecting the egg. It seems like he's almost like he's trying to deceive himself as much as he's trying to deceive everyone else, because sometimes our brain protects us with actions that don't actually serve us, but our brains have learned these things as protective behaviors. And so I wonder, when Ezran learned that covering up his sickness would help others, I wonder what lessons he learned that taught him that. I wonder who taught him that. Was that something that happened in the castle? Was that something does Harrow, when he was alive, does he hold back his sickness? And is that the modeling that Ezran saw? Does Callum do it? There's this learned behavior of trying to cover up our weaknesses and our sickness especially that really just makes me sad. And I'm like, y'all, it's okay to be sick. It's okay to need help. It's okay to need help. And so I just want to offer blessings to all of us who have learned that hiding our sicknesses from others is what we need to do. We can honor our bodies with honesty and accept grace and compassion and help from others and not be a burden. We can be who we are without being a burden. And I just think that that's something that I would love to model better myself. So I'm lifting that moment of deception up. My second moment is about human Rayla. And so deception by acting human, right? And it's, how do we justify certain acts of deception versus others? Like, where does the morality line prevent us from deception? And to me, this act of deception by Rayla is perfectly reasonable. But I imagine that if you were to ask another human with, that bias against elves, they'd be like, no, this deception is an act of evil. It proves that elves are evil because they're deceiving, right? And it just makes me question when and how and why deception might be something that's necessary, right? If it keeps us safe, then I would rather we be deceptive. And so it's hard. It's hard to make that call, and the ethics around that are convoluted and gray, right? It's not black and white. It never is. So that's just something I noticed that I wanted to lift up. And one of the, I digress, but a side note on this moment where she becomes human Rayla is, it's interesting that the snow elf is non-gendered, but a snowman is. I think the equivalent would be a snow human, right? Snow elf versus snow human. But I wonder if elves have gender problems like humans do. Does patriarchy exist in the elven world, right? It seems like both male, female, non-binary. We haven't seen examples of non-binary elves yet, but it seems like the presentation we've seen, and we will see, at least by their gender expression, there were both female and male elves as part of the assassin party that went to go after Harrow. And I wonder, do we think it's more equitable in Xadia for gender queerness, whether that's male, female, non-binary, or anything in between on that spectrum? And I question what that would be like if we were to be a little bit more gender inclusive. So that's just something to think about. My third moment of deception is regarding this vet, the animal doctor, if you will. And so this deception from Callum and Ezran, they're trying to protect the egg, right? They don't want to tell him all the information, but they're trying to tell him all the information. And he's just like, listen, y'all, I can't help unless I know what's actually going on. And he really just gives this vibe that is trusting. And he says, I want to help you. I know you're trying to hide something. I'm not going to make you tell me, but if you want me to help you, I need to know. And I think that's just really beautiful, and what a great example of someone I would want to divulge important information in. That was just really beautiful. And so again, a blessing for those of us who can listen and truly hear without judgment and without worrying about what will happen and what we have to do if we hear certain things. And I think it's really beautiful that this vet does that. So blessings on those of us that can model that behavior. Okay, number 4. I think I want to talk about just this idea of the cursed caldera in the first place, because the deception of this curse as a means of protection, right? It's the same deal. It's this curse as a means of protecting the moon. Oh my god, I'm losing the word. The moon nexus, right? And so, this fear, this deception is meant to be protective. And I wonder, how often are we prevented from pursuing our wants and our dreams because of a deception, right? The deception of this miracle healer covering up and creating all these scary animals that create this cursed caldera idea leads the group ultimately to pursuing what would be a fruitless journey, right? Where they get to the cop and they can't be helped. She can't help the egg, and then at the same time, it's a form of protection to save the moon nexus. And so there's this again, this convoluted do I do this? Do I do that? How many people are so desperate to be healed that they're willing to brave the terror that is the cursed caldera. There's just a lot going on that makes me nervous around this form of deception and having a lie be the protection. I don't know. It just makes me nervous. It reminds me like the Wizard of Oz, like, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Like, I don't know. Tell me more. What do you think of this moment? Help me understand it in a way that I can appreciate it more. What are your thoughts? Share with me. You can, if you're on our Patreon Facebook page, drop a comment. If you are just a regular listener, you can be a patron, and you can also just tweet at us. Tell us on Instagram. Show us anything, and we would love to hear from your perspective, what your thoughts are on this. But that brings us to number five. Callum's deception in a prior episode is something I want to talk about. So, the moment back in, I think, I don't know which episode, but when they're at the Banther Lodge and Amaya has them pinned, and Callum lies and says she's a monster, Rayla is a monster, and this is the moment where Amaya fires bow and an arrow almost takes Rayla out, but instead it takes her braid and pins it to a tree. And I think it's really interesting to see how we see Claudia and Soren find that. We see, like, it's really cool to see the far-reaching effect of one decision through multiple episodes, right? And that's so true in our own lives, too. We think about how one thing that we say can have consequences many, many days, years later, but this is an example, right? This something that he will never know that this is how Claudia and Soren will find them, right? And it's so fascinating because he was trying to do the right thing, but I don't know, maybe they would have shot at her no matter what. Maybe it was predestined, if you will, but I just think about how the things and the actions we take make a difference. They matter, regardless if we see the effect of them or not. And so I just think we have to constantly be acting with intention and be really careful how we proceed. Okay, so that is the top 5. What are moments of deception that you noticed? If you caught something that you want to discuss with me and you want to talk about the Dragon Prince, you can record a 2-minute voice memo and send it our way, thearkofe@gmail.com, and we might put it on an episode, might not, but we'll do our best to do so because we want to have listener interaction on the show. It always makes it a little bit more fun. Okay, so we're going to take a short musical break, and then we will come on back for our Lens MVP, our gratitude, and just final acknowledgements. See you soon. Okie dokie, welcome back to Dragon Prince, Bending Not Breaking. We're glad you're here. Okay, so we are excited to talk about our Lens MVP today. And remember, the Lens MVP is the one who does the lens best. And whether that's they are the most deceptive, whether they handle deception the best, it's up to your interpretation. But the way I'm interpreting it today is I'm giving it to Rayla, and I'm nominating Rayla for the Deception MVP for various reasons. One, her human impression is worth every bit of a subscription to Netflix. Two, she's holding on to vital information that the boys are, and she's still not sharing it. And it's hard with King Harrow. You know, it's hard sharing that, but she's still holding on to it, and that's tough. And then 3, when she takes the blade, she doesn't lie to Tristan, and despite his frankly bigoted behavior towards elves. And this is my nomination, and I'd love to hear yours. Like, who would you like to nominate? Send us your voicemail. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all the things. Tweeted us your nomination with an explanation and tell us why. Okay, and this brings us to the end, right? This brings us to gratitude, which is, the sweet joy of gratitude. I love it. And today I'm grateful for Ellis. Ellis is boss. So that's like, I could stop there, but I'm not. So like, I love love, and I love her love for Ava. It's just so touching. She didn't see a crippled wolf. She saw a beautiful wolf, right? She saw a wolf that was missing a leg, but saw it with full of life, full of joy. And I think sometimes I give in to the pragmatism of her father, right? I give in to the, it's going to be hard, and there's a lot of trouble and angst, and I don't need any more trouble and angst in my life, right? And I just lose the joy that can be found if we allow it to be present. And Ellis gives me hope that I can find that more. And so I'm grateful for Ellis for reminding me of this lesson and reminding me what it looks like to cultivate joy, right? And I find that to be beautiful. So thank you, Ellis, and I'm grateful. Who are you grateful for? Again, you can feel free to share and let us know. We'd love to hear about it. Remember, you can always find us on social media, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. Support us on Patreon, BNB_pod. And to end our show, I just want to thank the Archive for hosting this podcast. I want to be grateful for Alex Mayfield, Noah Blanchard, Kira Martin, and Max Gongaware. And even though I'm grateful for Alex/Sunshine, I'm super not grateful for his board game tactics. Despite that, thank you all for joining me, and I hope you're well. And if you're going to continue to listen to The Dragon Prince, I can't wait to see you as a patron. And if not, I hope that you'll listen to our chorus series as it comes out next week. Here we go. A new adventure begins. Thank you all, and until next time, be well and do good.